Well, folks, here again for the weekly forecast. Before we get to the main forecast, of course, let's take a retrospective look over this last week. The first major storm system that was projected came in last week, and it turned out to be a bust in relation to what the models were putting out for moisture. We did see some scattered thunderstorm activity across portions of central and eastern Nebraska, but for the most part, it was very isolated in nature, not widespread. And in most locations, we didn't get very much in the way of significant moisture. There was a few little isolated pockets of a half-inch totals, but really most of it was between a tenth and a quarter of an inch. The more important system came out during the midweek period. We've seen some precipitation break out in eastern Nebraska during the morning hours. And then we've seen the thunderstorms develop along the cold front or just behind the cold front across portions of south central through central Nebraska and then moving up into portions of northeast Nebraska. Essentially from that area, Hastings, all the way up into the Columbus region, we had numerous reports of anywhere from 1.5 inches to well over 3 inches of moisture. Now, as that system started to gain strength and move eastward, we started to see expansion of the thunderstorm activity, but a decrease in intensity. And so as we got into eastern Nebraska, very common totals were in the 1/2 inch to upwards of 1 inch range. So the models were projecting the heaviest moisture in eastern Nebraska. It actually fell in central Nebraska, so they were off basically about 90 miles westward is where the actual precip fell in relation to what the models were projecting. Now we have another system moving through this weekend, and depending on how it acts as it moves to the east of us, will go a long way to determine our weather for the remainder of this week. So let's take a look at this upper air models and see how the system will progress as we move through this next 7-day period. So for today, we have this upper air low to our southwest. It is going to really pump up some low-level moisture up into our region, so it's going to be a very windy day. And it's going to be a very humid day, particularly across eastern Nebraska. In anticipation of the storm moving up, we may actually see a couple isolated thunderstorms develop across the western part of the state during the evening and overnight hours. But more importantly, as the system rapidly moves into the central plains, we should see severe weather breaking out across western Nebraska and some of that moving into eastern Nebraska, particularly during the afternoon and overnight hours. And then we'll start to see some cold air spilling in on the back side of it. So we do have a very good chance of moisture. Now this system will kind of open up and spin around, and so we'll get waves of energy moving around this low, giving us a chance of precipitation on an off and on basis throughout a good portion of the week. And as we get into Monday, you'll see the system slowly moves to our east, so we'll start to see more of the cooler air on the backside of it. But again, we'll be dealing with this off and on scattered shower activity. And then this system starts to make its way into the Ohio River Valley, and on the backside we'll see a much cooler fetch in at least Wednesday, and we'll start to see some warming conditions developing across western part of the state, and that will start to translate eastward as the main moisture band moves into the Ohio River Valley, and by Friday we'll see that all this will have cleared from our region. So if we look at the temperature forecast, very warm conditions today, and then we'll see a cool down through the early part of the week with those scattered thunderstorm and shower activity, and then a gradual warm up as we move to the week's end. In terms of the 8 to 14-day forecast from next Thursday to the following Tuesday, we see the cooler conditions remain in our region. In terms of precipitation, we do show this drier than normal conditions, but there are increasing signs that a very active pattern will continue, so this one may not verify.